Hello and welcome back to another RiftGuides WildRift video. Today we are going to take a look at the high elo tier list for the current patch 4.4. In this patch there have been so many changes to power rankings, especially on the AD carry position and overall mages, that this one is going to be a banger. So after watching this video, you'll know everything you have to know to pick the best champions in this patch and understand why you pick them. And now let's get straight into the video. First, we'll start with the Baron lane. Here we have barely any changes. Not much did in fact change. However, what you can say is that Teemo could potentially rise in the power rankings and become a very high A tier champion. But again, you rarely see Teemos, and just seeing this champion always comes with mixed feelings. If there's something to say, however, it's that Vladimir got stronger, Akali got stronger, and basically every mage champion that is able to pick Crown is a potential top contender for a top pick this patch. Nonetheless, it's very important to mention that Fiora is still the god tier carry if you're very good, and the emphasis here is put on very good. Fiora is a champion that is a hard stomping champion. You want to stomp lane, you want to understand what you have to do in the side lane, and then just take over the game. The easier version of a Fiora would be a Jax, like super easy to play compared to a Fiora, and still similarly as powerful. Probably the weakest champion in the S tier is going to be Riven, simply because of how a champion functions, and she really needs to snowball to get anything done, and inherently if the enemy is smart enough, this doesn't happen too many times. Other champions such as Yone and Yasuo can really shine during the laning phase by just skill begapping people and their kit, and Riven doesn't really succeed that many times doing so. However, she's still better than alternatives down in the A tier unless you have a draft in which you need AP desperately and want to pick like something as a cannon, even though I don't recommend picking this champion. Champions in the B tier, please stay away from them, especially Kayle. Champions like Urgot can work, but they usually are not very good carry champions, and Irelia is very hard to pilot in the Baron lane and very susceptible of getting ganked and being put behind. For the tanks in the Baron lane, there has been literally no changes. Ornn is still the best tank available, Mundo is the best fighting tank, Shen is the best utility tank in the sense of having a good bot lane and just ulting down there, Sion is just a split push demon if you want to pick a champion like this, Garen is just a neutralizer that doesn't really die, and all the other champions below basically force you to have certain conditions to have them picked. And Singed, I'm so sorry, but Singed is so weak. Like, the only way this champion gets anything done is if somebody has no idea how to lane and the enemy has no crowd control. Like, this champion needs to be ahead and needs to be able to walk through the team, through the entire enemy team, to apply pressure. However, if he does so, be it with Righteous Glory, be it with Ghost, be it with Protobelt Flash, as long as he flanks the right target, he can be the difference. And before we continue, thank you all for watching, but there's one thing. Why haven't you subscribed yet? Take a good look at how many of you have not subscribed yet. What is the reason? If you want to make sure that this channel gets more videos, more content, and more updates, well, all you have to do, press the sub button, leave a comment for engagement, and then just come back for more. With the Baron lane done and my quick little insert, we are now moving over to the jungle tier list. In jungle, Lee Sin is still the best champion. He is the best early game champion, very most powerful early game champion, and best snowball champion in the game as of right now. His jungle clear is insane, like insanely fast, and his gank potential is absurd. Like, his 1v1 potential is also crazy, and his carry potential is out of this world, especially if you understand how to pilot this champion properly. But there's one thing in jungle that you can always play that requires barely any skill, and it's Kha'Zix. Literally everyone or anyone can play Kha'Zix, so if you want to pick a champion in jungle without having to learn anything, it's Kha'Zix. Other champions like Evelynn and Hecarim are also way too broken, and if you want to climb, you can basically abuse all of these champions. Another champion who has been like climbing the ranks right now is Twitch. Like, he is so much stronger thanks to Crown and Runaan's changes that he basically cannot be killed anymore if you hit the later stages of the game. However, you still suffer from the same problems as you did before, that early game really is your biggest weakness in the sense of getting invaded and just making sure you're not falling off the curve, and you need to extend the game to a certain point where you hit like 3 to 4 items, and then you can carry reliably without any problem thanks to Crown and Runaan's. In case you're wondering, my Morgana is one tier below now. Morgana's W doesn't, or second ability doesn't proc Crown, and it's kind of hard for her to find impact if the enemy mages simply can avoid her first ability and then just run her down. It's kind of a big problem. Plus, you need to learn how to double camp and be efficient on tempo for Morgana to be very powerful. Like, you can take a look at the shorts we are making for jungle clearing and see how fast people and champions can get, and what you need to do to make sure this champion is very powerful. Evelynn, on the other hand, if you start double camping with her, is completely batshit broken. broken. Like, even if you don't double camp with her, she has a good clear, but if you start double camping with her, it is crazy. Like 127, you're in the river, having fully cleared your jungle, and you're chilling there as an Evelynn. That is insane. And another champion I need to mention because it's been slept on so many times is Nyla. Nyla usually struggles the most during the laning phase, but there's a role where she doesn't have to lane, and that's jungle. And in this jungle position, she can basically power farm everything, and with the meta being as it is, she can just take over the game. Especially due to the fact that most junglers to this day still go for Dragon instead of Herald. Dragon right now, and there'll be a dedicated video to this, is completely worthless. If you go for Dragon instead of Herald, you are trying to basically lose, and well, it's just how it goes. For the tanks in the jungle role, there has been barely any changes because, well, there are no changes. Nothing has happened to them. You can basically argue a few changes in the sense of putting Mundo a little bit higher, making Jarvan a carry champion rather than a tank, and Nautilus as well, because you can basically play them tank or carry, and usually you see Jarvan played as a carry more often than as a tank. But I want to give people choices what they can play and give them some options in the tank department, because many people would actually forget that Jarvan could be played as a tank as well. But regarding the meta, you'll most of the time be better off picking any of the champions I mentioned earlier because they're so much more powerful and, well, they're easy to play. They're not as easy in the sense of tanking 50 billion K damage and still killing you, but they're relatively easy to pilot. Now let's talk about the mid lane, and here we start with the mages. Mages, there are barely any changes to normal mages here in the sense of a power ranking, but there are a few things we need to talk about, and it mainly targets 3 different champions. It is Veigar, it's Annie, and it's Twisted Fate. Crown of the Shattered Queen on enemy champions basically denies one of their major ways of playing the game. Like, all of these champions have one major button that changes the fight: TF Gold card, any Tibbers or rather stun, and Veigar's Cage. All of this can be disabled with Crown of the Shattered Queen, and then the enemy can get close to you. All the other champions, for example Kassadin or Fizz, have a way of proccing your crown and then getting close to you without you being able to do anything about this, and then killing you. They can avoid damage, and you have basically no way of surviving against them. In the past, you had ways of killing them before they can do anything, but now it's kind of a problem, and this is exactly what we have to basically put our eyes on. In the future, you might see them drop in power ranking from S to A, simply because they get denied so much easier than other champions in the S tier, because these other champions either have more mobility or a way to reliably proc the enemy's crown before they can get close, which then allows them to actually deal with them before their own crown is getting procced. And obviously the best champion or the best mage champion in the middle lane is still Vladimir. Boots of Lucidity and Crown are just too unbelievably broken on this champion, and you can just never die. Now, with all of this in mind, champions like Vex and Ziggs could rise to the S tier, whereas other champions, as I mentioned beforehand, like TF, Annie, and Veigar can drop into the A tier. So stay tuned for this, but champions in the B tier, well, there's just no hope for them. Like, they're either one-trick champions, they are very niche champions that require a specific draft, or well, they're just super weak, like Kayle. Champions such as an Aurelion Sol will get his rework, as far as I'm concerned, in the early January next year. So now, let's talk about Assassins. Assassins for this patch is Fizz. Fizz is the most powerful assassin currently in the mid lane, next to Ahri. Ahri shines with her ability to rotate around the map and push her wave. Fizz, on the other hand, has super high base damages, kills you without even hitting ultimate, and is just a champion you can never chase into if he goes into the side lane. And if the Fizz player happens to be very good and you use any of your spells while he's walking towards you and uses his third ability to Playful Trickster, he avoids your ability and loses you 70% of your HP bar. So it's very mandatory of you to potentially run bone plating into Fizz simply for survival purposes, unless you definitely know that you will never be tagged by him in that manner. Now, the weakest champion as an assassin for the mages in mid lane here in this tier is probably Kassadin. He just takes too long to scale up and cannot really compete with Fizz, Ahri, Diana, and Akali due to the early game. Like, if he gets into late game, he definitely can, don't get me wrong, he's crazily OP late game, but compared to the other champions, he takes way too long, and the game might have been over already unless you can extend it. Champions in the A tier, like physical assassins, are basically just 50 times weaker now. They can't really play their games anymore. Crown of the Shattered Queen is too broken and it's just too annoying. Pyke needs to coin flip his games by constantly rotating and hope to get it done. Katarina's damage got nerfed to oblivion, and Echo, from my opinion, is better suited for the jungle role than the mid lane. Now let's talk about the other tier, and here we have Draven as the most broken mid lane champion. Okay, you might be confused, why Draven here? Draven is way better suited for the mid lane than the AD carry position simply for the fact of solo queue being a thing. In duo queue it's another story, but in solo queue this champion's oppressiveness is insane. Similar to the old Lucian mid, this champion does scale better than Lucian as of right now, he carries harder than Lucian as of right now, and he is overall a better champion than Lucian is. Simply for the fact that this champion utilizes the new Bloodthirster 50 billion times better than most other champions simply because he's a skirmish champion. He wants to keep on fighting, he wants to keep on going, and therefore it's such a wonderful item on him. Next to this, he can force the most trades possible in the mid lane, and nothing else can fight him. Like literally nothing, unless for example the Akali hits a third ability into your face and completely annihilates you because, well, you made a big mistake. But there's something you have to keep in mind. You are not allowed to make many mistakes. This is a one-trick champion. It's just a theoretically possible pick that's very broken if you play it well. If you make mistakes, well, you're in for a lot of trouble. Oh yeah, and Duskblade into BT on this champion on mid lane, insane. But now we have to talk about the other champions in the S tier, specifically about Yasuo. This champion is an abomination for your champion and all the other carries in the other tier. Like Jace, Jhin, and Corki and all the other champions below really struggle with this champion because Windwall is just so absurdly broken, and plated steel caps are, well, like even after all these nerfs, they're still broken. Who would have guessed if the item grants you health regen, armor, and damage reduction from physical, yeah, that this item is going to be broken, right? So yeah, if you want to play any of these champions here, just ban Yasuo. Otherwise, Jace is still a big lane bully. Yasuo is a solid pick into all AD carries, as I said, he just doesn't die, he's just annoying, and if you hate him, just ban him. Jace is also still a lane bully. Jhin is an insane lane bully. Akshan can win lane, but he doesn't really carry the game and does too little damage. Kai'Sa's laning phase is not really in the amazing, but she can scale a little bit better in the mid lane because she's not as dependent on her like a support champion, and Tristana basically does the same. Now let's move over to the AD carries, and here we have Tristana as still like the queen of the scaling bot laners. She's just still the best champion in sense of scaling, taking over the game and being very powerful. However, her laning phase is much weaker than, for example, other champions, like for example Zarya and Caitlyn. There are a few things you need to know about Tristana that will make your life easier. If the enemy doesn't have exhaust, you basically win for free because you can just force a level 5 all in and instantly kill them. From that point onward, you just kill them on cooldown and just make sure to go for Gelatinous Greaves, BT, Navori Quickblades, and IE. Now immediately after this, we have the two strongest laning champions for the bot lane that can basically lane into anything and just survive and even do a 1v2. That is Caitlyn and Zarya. With proper spacing and understanding how a champion works, you can win lane and therefore win the game, but there are a few issues with Caitlyn, for example. If you don't win the lane, you'll basically be useless until the very late stages of the game, which is a very bad thing to happen. Zarya, on the other hand, is a very powerful pick into an all-in enemy team comp, like borderline broken. Kai'Sa, on the other hand, her laning is absolutely awful and requires your support to be an absolute carry or the enemy to be complete goober. Neela and Samira, on the other hand, also need very good support players to be powerful, and they're not really that self-sufficient in the AD carry role. For example, if your support player is an Alistar or a Nautilus or a Thresh, your Samira is going to be beyond broken because all you need to do is press auto attack button, you need to smash the auto attack button as the enemy uses the crowd control, then just yeet in and kill the people with your superior damage, and they can't really escape from you because you have so much movement speed from your passive. Neela, on the other hand, can't really do too much, similar to Azari, but the moment you're level 5 you basically explode people with the right support champion. But yet again, on your own, you're not the strongest and way better suited in the jungle role. For the B tier, we have Draven, and only if you're a one-trick pony, he's a better champion or a good champion, but basically he's just better mid lane. Misfortune and Ashe are very good lane bullies, but they can get taken out very easily and therefore they're not as powerful in a solo queue context, but you'll still have great success during the laning phase if you can stomp people. Lucian also doesn't do anything anymore outside of praying to snowball, and then you can just pick Kate, lol. And yeah, now we need to talk about the most awful pick in solo queue. It's probably Zeri. Like, she cannot lane, she needs to pray to it the later stages of the game, basically like a Kassadin, and any AD carry, other than her, out of all these AD carries, can go 20-0, but Zeri can't on her own. Like, she can't do anything and she's just completely fine and has to accept the fact that nothing is happening. And therefore, she cannot be a good solo queue choice. Don't get me wrong, in duo queue it might be a different story, but even in duo queue, if you pick any other champion, you'd probably go 50-0 compared to Zeri's 2-0, and in the later stages of the game, you would not even get there because you would end the game earlier. Don't get me wrong, in a competitive environment it's a different story because AD carry plays 1v1 and they need to be self-sufficient and type of a caster 1v1, and here in solo queue it's just about who gets the most kills the fastest in the most reliable fashion. You can even make an argument that Twitch is better suited in the A tier compared to Zeri in the A tier, but from my honest perspective, Twitch needs to play the map more than the lane, and therefore it's not really suited for most AD carry players. Like, sorry brothers, but we all know, we see minion, we hit minion, we don't care about roaming too much, and therefore this champion is just weaker. But if you are like playing Twitch well, I think he's a solid A tier, and Zeri is just in the bottom of the B tier, next to the Vayne, because Vayne, she really just sucks. Like, I really try to find arguments for champions being decent or good, but if a champion's only purpose is killing tanks, and even that she's not even good compared to other champions, like only a third auto attack really deals damage, what's the purpose of even picking her? Like, Varus does 50 times the things she does, Nada does 25 billion times the things she does, outside of having a worse lane, of course. And Xayah also does more in the sense of tank killing because you have 400 AD, by the way, and Tristana has it just doesn't make sense that they have nerfed Vayne so much, and I think they need to look into this like again, because Vayne was only really functional with the Lulu. Like, even now she's functional with the Lulu because, well, Lulu's just broken in duo queue, but yeah, all other champions are just better. And now let's talk about the mages. Ziggs is the god of the bot lane. As per usual, I've done a video on him. He's just crazy strong and a very solid pickup that can basically play to anything. Lux is not that far off, but Ziggs is simply Ziggs and has so much pressure. Veiga is only really good into melee and struggles into crown users. Vex needs you or the enemy team to have a lot of movement to get a lot of passive procs. Orianna needs you to space really well into melee champions and the enemy needs to have proper melee champions. Zoe is good if you have a playmaker and you just want to set up plays. Seraphine is very good into enemy all-in if they can't destroy your waves. And Morgana is really only powerful with a Leona or Nautilus, like any lockdown support, but Leona's the best. And otherwise you just stay away from her. Swain is only really playable with a Senna, and otherwise you shouldn't play it at all, and there are other better combinations than a Swain, but well, Swain is a fun champion. And Twisted Fate is kind of a dead pick in the dragon lane, but you can whip him out with the Thresh and the enemy won't move anymore, but it's more of a funny combo. And now let's talk about the support champions. The best support champions right now for the engaged tier are Nautilus, closely followed by Leona, and Rakan is still one of the best champions if you go full damage. And for example, if you want to make Samira one of the most broken champions, just pick Nautilus, Ellie, Rakan, Thresh, all of this like type of champions, and then Samira turns to the most broken champion in the game. For the protect tier, here I have to make a few like statements. It's kind of impossible to give you a proper estimation of a champion's strength here because it really depends if you play solo or duo. For example, if you play duo, Lulu and Yuumi are the most broken protective champions ever. Nothing comes close. If you play solo, playing Lulu or Yuumi is like, yeah, giving a random person $50 million and praying he gives you the money back by tomorrow just because he said, I promise you, brother. So to avoid this kind of problem of trust issues, you can basically just pick Janna, which is a bystander by itself, but with the Harmonic Ingenious build, you can basically take care of that. However, Lulu and Yuumi are just way too powerful. Similar to this, if you want to play more lane-centric and not as rotation-heavy and just want to go for teamfights with Harmonic afterwards, Soraka is a very powerful pickup because his champion is just cringe. And Braum is very good if the enemy has a lot of projectiles. Other than this, if you want to think about a carry or more carry-oriented champion, you can make Nami and Seraphine into a carry and put them into the upper A tier on the carry department on the other tier list. And now let's take a look at this tier list for the carry tier. So Pyke is the best solo queue carry champion in the support role. Nothing comes close, he has the highest pressure on the map, the highest carry potential, he can basically do everything. If you're good on this champion, he's crazily broken, and like no other engaged champion can really match up to his basically impact on the map. He's too fast, he kills too fast, he is too slippery, and yeah, he's just annoying and he simply doesn't die. After this, if you want to play for truly carrying your teammates, you should look into Karma. Then closely followed, after this you have to look into Lux, and only then after this it's Ashe and Senna. Senna is more of a duo champion, but if you're truly good on this champion you can also play in solo queue, but then I would rather recommend you play Pyke or Karma. It's just easier for you to have an impact. And champions in the A or B tier, I would generally just stay away from them. They don't provide as much for you or your team than other champions. And yeah, I would rather have a protect Janna than a carry Seraphine because of how it usually goes in this game, and Seraphine is only really good into certain team comps. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, boost the comment section, just blast it out, type we love Vindy in the comment section to know if you're a real one, and yeah, we'll see each other in the next video. See you.